want war. Crime babies looking for food, starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day and every clue. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep, leaving 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink. I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and I feel we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers. Cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather. I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double. But nature gets the shit in the way to settle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TVs whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't dare, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't stare. And like an ab, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war.
All right, yeah, y'all, we back at it again. Now, yeah, this is just crazy ride for Trump and for the U.S., for people, for humanity. I'm telling you, for humanity. Humanity should be worried because a lunatic is truly on deck. And, you know, folks got to be prepared for whatever, you know, whichever way to move, you know, the left or the right. And by the way, you know, don't get, you know, outmaneuvered by the offense, you know, because they could fake right and then move left. Right. So my advice to American citizens, particularly those that understand Trump is a goddamn lunatic, selfish, narcissist, and his game plan, lean on your state representatives hard. Support your state where you are. People, whether you're a government employee, whether you're a police officer in that state, whether you are a National Guards member of that state, lean on your state. People in the states, they need to lean on each other and make plans to help each other, because this federal government, this under Donald Trump, the executive branch, is out of his goddamn mind and has no plans for anything good for any American citizen. Like, unless you're one of the rich. Just right out of the bat. And you can see he doesn't care what you fucking think. He doesn't care what Congress thinks. MAGA Mike Johnson is basically, you know, capitulated. He's turned over Congress to Trump. Trump runs Congress. It's supposed to be a independent branch of government. It is not. It has not been under this Trump administration. There will be no pushback. You can't wait for pushback. You see what the lack of pushback has gotten people. What has gotten people is a big, beautiful, ugly bill, which I'm going to explain in a second. How it actually mirrors Argentina's own government, slashing all types of programs for the everyday people, right? How it didn't work in Argentina, it's on its way. The U.S., they're trying to implement this for the wealthy. Like, don't be fooled about Argentina. Somebody's getting some money. There's some rich folk in Argentina, and it's an international group of rich folks. The only thing is they know nothing about government, and they know everything about scamming, and they have somehow ganged up on the regular people of Argentina and stolen that country from the people. And this is what is about to happen in the United States. Same exact philosophy. Just connect the dots. Now, before we get into the data, because the data is not good, but the data is going to give you an idea of where this thing is going and why, because this is straight up libertarianism 100%, and people that know anything about libertarianism, they know that the poor and the middle class, you don't matter at all. You just don't matter at all. So, but speaking of that, in any case, what would you do if you were a libertarian? You already know the effects. You know that there will be chaos. If you cut too many social programs and you put too many people, masses of people, more people than already are in poverty, and you put more people into poverty, which is what their big, beautiful, ugly bill is, that's exactly what it is. It's going to be chaos. It is going to be chaos, and does this change in the bunker have anything to do with Trump suspecting some chaos? Trump already sees American people are fed up with him. They already see it. Don't you find it a little strange that just out of the blue, so swiftly, all of a sudden the East Wing is knocked down and he doesn't even want to tell you what the plan is, what anything about the architecture? I mean, do you think that's being done for nothing, all for show? Do you think Trump not following the rules is all for show? Now you find out, and here's the news, y'all. It isn't just the East Wing. Now they're actually making changes to renovate the bunker. And who's supposed to pay for it? Listen, any change that happens in the East Wing, any change that happens to the White House, any change that happens to a federal government building, it all has to be approved by Congress in writing through a vote. All of it. All of it has to be. It doesn't matter where you get the money from. Before any money goes out to pay for anything by anybody, even if it's a donation, it has to be approved by Congress because it is the people's house. Somehow Trump is going out there getting donations from people. What do you think those donations are for? First of all, they're about to renovate. They're about to renovate it, right? Okay, they're renovating. Now, is it possible when you hear Trump talking about the ballroom, expanding the ballroom and the number of people it can fit, is it possible that he's really talking about the bunker, fitting people into the bunker? Now, straight up, weeks ago, I may have been the first person to just go straight at it and say, this East Wing shit is about the bunker. Like anybody that's been listening to me, I said that straight out of the gate. This is just a week or two ago. This is just as soon as the conversation came up in legacy media. Everybody knows. It's just like Fort Knox. If you want to rob Fort Knox, hey, it would be nice if you could buy the building next to Fort Knox, wouldn't it? Duh, obviously. So if you wanted to do anything with this bunker, whether you wanted to tap it for, so it can leak information, whether you want to build a satellite so it can go out to enemies, or whether you want to change anything in it, anything that has to do with that bunker, obviously having access to what is next to it or changing something that is next to it would be of big benefit, especially if you never wanted to announce it as anything having anything to do with the bunker. But obviously, it's coming out now that it does have something to do with the bunker. This is no coincidence at all. And this is the bunker we're talking about. This is not just, this is literally a doomsday bunker, right? And Trump, we're going to go to his voice, his clips, and listen to how he's talking. And then you tell me. Now, this is the bunker right here. This is the bunker we're talking about, right? This is the entrance of the bunker. It's a real bunker. It's designed for nuclear attack, a direct nuclear blast. You see? Now, so let's go listen to Trump talk now. Let's listen to his little statements that he's made, right? And just see if we can put some pieces together.
Building a ballroom. They've wanted a ballroom for 150 years. And I'm giving that honor to this wonderful place. I think we should do it. This was the ballroom. And this room holds 88 people. And the new one will hold 999 people.
999 people? How many people did the old bunker hold? I'm just curious. And why are they working on the bunker? And look at everybody laughing. And look at who paid for it. And think about who these people are. Who's paying for it? Folks, there's people that are involved with Argentina, right? And I don't know how much people know about libertarian governments, the way they are formed, their beliefs. What they believe in is they literally believe the wealthy class know better than everybody else. And that the system is supposed to work for the wealthy class, not for the people. Straight up. So let's just listen to a few more statements here by Trump. This is his own words.
I think it's got to be handled in a proper way. If it's not handled in a proper way, we don't want it to happen again. We can never let what happened in the 2020 election happen again. We just can't let that happen. And
So what does he mean? He can't let that happen? That means he doesn't want to come out of power. Trump does not want to come out of power. But let's play some more.
I know Casey's working on it. Everybody's working on it. And certainly Tulsi's working on it. We can't let that happen again to our country. Look at what's happened where you have millions of people being allowed to come into our country, all because of a crooked election, where they come from prisons, they come from jails, they come from...
So he's already telling you that this is about the election. Everything that Trump is doing is about this upcoming election that he knows he will lose. Again, don't you think it's a little strange how fast Trump has moved to removing the East Wing? Don't you think that's a little fast? Did any amount of time go by, any, formal preparation, any discussions with the public? It's just from one day to the next. Think about this.
Come from mental institutions and insane asylums, they're drug dealers, the people that they've allowed to come into our country.
Look, this is how Nazis talked about their own people. He's just throwing immigrant on it, but this is how Nazis talked about their own people. The gays, the drug addicts, the socialists, the communists, the la. This dude really has a hatred for American people. Now, right now, he's able to mask it as immigrant, but immigrants don't vote. So you could see in the same setting, he's talking about it can never happen again. What happened in the past election can never happen again. Right now, he's also changing the bunker, even though he's not publicly saying it. They just said one time, also some renovations in the bunker. OK, just some renovations in the bunker. But before, it had nothing to do with the bunker. But when everyone in the public starts talking about, wait a second, the bunker's right under it. That's strange. Now, all of a sudden, it's a little renovation in the bunker. Okay.
Because the New York Times is reporting that your legal team is seeking $230 million from your own Justice Department now in response to the investigations into you. Is that something you want your legal team to do?
I don't know what the numbers are.
Okay, so that's totally illegal. But we know Trump doesn't care about the law.
I think it's got to be handled.
Hold on. Where's this clip where he's talking about the 200? He's talking about 200 million. Hold on. Here, where is it at? They asked him about 200 million. But in any case, people know what Trump has said in the last week. First, it turned this situation turned from this right here, tearing down the left wing of the White House, right? Everyone knew that the bunker's right under it. Again, if you wanted to rob Fort Knox, it would be great to own the building next to it. It would be great to have a reason to be at the building next to it. Any reason, construction, going to see a movie, I don't know, hanging out, having dinner. It would be nice if you could just kind of be next door to Fort Knox without anybody knowing you. Everyone in their right mind knows if this dude is knocking down this building, it has something to do with the bunker. Why? Because an enemy would want that to be. See, if you learn to think like the enemy of the United States, he thinks just like Trump, like flat out. Now look, check this out. Here we go. Let's go on. Oh, yeah, I know this was also a lie. You can think this is peddling lies all you want. But guess what? Your president is Donald J. Trump. So apparently you like lies. AC 87. Your president is a liar. You voted for a pedophile, a defending weirdo who hates everyday people. But in any case, you love that. I bet you do. Now, look, check this out, folks. It's not just me who's been saying this. Boom. Mark McDonald. There's a bunker under the east wing of the White House. By sheer coincidence, Adolf Hitler added on to the Reich Kanzler by building a ballroom above the Vort bunker in 1936. Yes, that is actually true. And see, anyone that's a history buff would put two and two together. That's the first thing I thought is like, this East Wing, whatever destruction is going on at the East Wing, definitely has something to do with what is underneath it. Period. The valuable piece of property is the bunker. It's not the East Wing. So why would you waste time in the East Wing when you can just go after the bunker, right? Now look, that is there. Now let's go to the next one. Boom. Midas Touch also covered this. Seriously, people need to wake up. The bunker under the East Wing will also be upgraded. So this comes after. Trump didn't say this in the beginning. He said nothing about the bunker. And guess who's paying for it? Private donors. Sorry, y'all. No one can fund. There can be no funding of anything governmental that has anything to do with the White House, the Pentagon, the Capitol building, anything governmental. It all has to be approved by Congress. Any funding, it doesn't matter if someone gives you the funding, it all must be approved by Congress. But Trump knows this. He knows it has to be approved by Congress, right? So what is the money really for then? Since he knows legally it has to be by Congress, is it that he's planning on renovating it? Sure, there might be small changes here and there, sure. Or is it something else that he's planning that's much easier? Who knows? I'm just saying, to me, I'd be very suspicious about him selling, is it a sale? Is he selling tickets to this bunker? Is Donald Trump selling goddamn tickets, access to this bunker, to these people? Are these people getting access to this bunker for this money? You see what I mean? Are they paying? Is this the heist of the United States of America about to happen? Like, seriously, because this would be something libertarians would do. This would be the White House military office is handling the renovation of the bunker. But how do you handle it when you don't have money and congressional authority, which is known as the Presidential Emergency Bunker? Here we go. Here's another one. Let's see here. Paul, right, exactly. Skyline report. Hitler rebuilt the Reich Chancellery to glorify himself. Trump is doing the same. I mean, there's a lot of people that seem to think the same thing. Something is seriously happening here. Like, this guy is sick. This guy stood behind the White House and on international TV directed a mob to invade the Capitol building, and everyone saw it. And you would be like, only a sick MFer would do that. Well, that is Donald Trump. It really did happen. It really did happen. And he did it because he lost the election. And you just heard this man say, nothing like that can ever happen again. Trump is doing the same thing to the White House. 1930s Berlin, it took Hitler 6 years to build a marble monument to his power. In 2025, Trump bulldozed the East Wing in days to erect a 90,000 square foot ballroom, as he says, nearly twice the size of the White House itself. No reviews. Now, keep this in mind. Trump has overvalued pretty much all those properties he's been, Letitia James convicted him of. All those properties were overvalued. So when you hear about the money and the value of this property, you know right away, is it possible this shit, whatever he's building, East Wing, is not really that valuable, that it's not really 300 million, or it's not really that there's something else going on, because Trump has been known with his property to foosc the numbers, right? House itself, no reviews, no public input, no shame, right? All of this is illegal. There can be no funds used to do anything for any government purpose that is not approved by Congress. That's how the law is. Now, that's the Constitution. But Trump's monument to his ego. Now, think about this. Now, look, check this out. Now, when comparing these libertarians, you got Elon Musk, you got Peter Thiel. Elon Musk got close ties with Argentina. I mean, don't forget that. It's these lithium mines in Argentina. They're one of the biggest lithium deposits in the world, right? The lithium mines. So again, Argentina is not broke, right? There's money there. It's just not for the common people. It's just not for the common people, right? This is the president of Argentina, and this is Elon Musk with that chainsaw, and they celebrated all of that in everyone's face, in plain sight. It's called hiding in plain sight. So, what are the policies that wrecked the economy? What are the policies that they're doing? Well, check this out. All you have to do is look at the U.S. economy right now and ask yourself, what the hell is going on with the U.S. economy? And then you will know, this sounds very libertarian.
We're going to go to Steve Ratner, who's going to be talking about the K-shaped economy, this period we're going through. So, Steve, you bring us the charts this morning on the health of the U.S. economy, and your first one shows how economic growth is uneven. Explain.
Yeah, Micah. So we've had economic growth now for a number of years, and it is continuing. But there are two things happening with economic growth that people should be aware of. The first is it's generally slowing. It's going from here to here down to just about under 2% in total, from 2.5% in 2024. But what's really interesting is we all talk about AI, and AI is now becoming a significant part of economic growth. AI back in this whole period here was only about 10% of economic growth. Now it's 31% of economic growth. And so the actual growth that's filtering down to ordinary Americans is dropping even by more, and it would be 1.1% in the first half of 2025. So that's happening on that side. And then what's happening in terms of wages for people, which partially reflects obviously that slowdown in economic growth, is that for the first time in a number of years, people toward the bottom are doing worse than people toward the top. You had a whole period going back to 2016 here, where wages for people at the bottom quartile, were rising faster than for the rest of the other quartiles further up. And then you had COVID, of course, but now it's gone the other way. And so people here in the bottom quartile are seeing their wages only going up by about 3.5% a year, while people up here are seeing them grow by more than 5.5% a year. And so we're seeing now rising income inequality for the first time in a number of years.
And your second chart, Steve, gets at why that is. A lot of it is to do with the explosion of the stock market in the last 5 or 6
Yep. Now keep on listening.
For 6 years, with the wealthy getting much, much wealthier.
Yeah, we've had this extraordinary period in the stock market where you've had in In 5 out of the last 6 years, you've had the stock market go up by 15% or more, as much as 30%, 25%. Obviously, huge increases, way above what the average American is going to get. And this year, while the year is not quite over yet, we're also on track for a year where the stock market is likely to go, it's not over, likely to go up by 15% a year again. So that's created an enormous amount of wealth. And that's helped. It's not the only thing, but that has helped fuel this purchasing power, huge rise in purchasing power on the part of the very wealthy. You can see if you go back to the beginning of 2020, the people in the top 20% have increased their consumption. They've bought more stuff by 50%. But every other income group has only gone up about 25, which is almost exactly the same of inflation. What does that mean? It means that for the average American, they're really not buying any more stuff than they were buying 4 years ago, which means their standard of living isn't really going up. This group here, actually not this group, the top 10% of
people from Europe, listen, people from Europe, you will be affected by this monetarily. Trust me, watch. Everybody in this, there's going to be a bubble. There's going to be a bubble. There's going to be some trouble. And it's going to affect a lot of people. But first, I just want to deal with the fact of how it's coming, what the thought process is behind it, the methodology, the political views of Trump, Elon Musk, Thiel, and what they plan on doing with the U.S. mirrors the philosophy of Argentina. Watch.
Americans account for 50% of everything that's bought in this country today. So think about that. The top 10% of Americans get 50% of the consumption. The bottom 90% of Americans get the other 50% of everything that's bought in this country today. So think about that. The top 10% of Americans get 50% of the consumption. The bottom 90% of Americans get the other 50% of consumption. We're buying 4 years ago, which means their standard of living isn't really going up. This group here, actually not this group, the top 10% of Americans account for 50% of everything that's bought in this country today. So think about that. The top 10% of Americans get 50% of the consumption. The bottom 90% of Americans get the other 50% of consumption. For the average American, they're really not buying any more stuff than they were buying 4 years ago.
So right now, the 1%, top 10 economic, or 10% of the economy, they're doing, or the 1%, they're actually doing very, very well. The bottom percent, which is like 60 something, how many percent of the people? How many percent of the people are sharing what left of the economy? Like almost nothing of the economy. Look at this. Right now, and if you can't feel it in your pocket, you're going to feel it next month.
They're really not buying any more stuff than they were buying 4 years ago, which means their standard of living isn't really going up. This group here, actually not this group, the top 10% of Americans account for 50% of everything that's bought in this country.
Top 10% account for 50% of all the buying in the U.S. The U.S. is headed for disaster. Watch.
Country today. So think about that. The top 10% of Americans get 50% of the consumption. The bottom 90% of Americans get the other 50% of consumption.
The bottom 90% of Americans, get the rest of it.
And your third chart is very jarring, especially if you're looking for a job right now. The job market looks rough.
Yeah.
Yo, people are peasants. American voters voted themselves into peasantry. It's very simple, Eric. The American voters voted themselves into the big, beautiful bill, peasantry. They want to try to be peasants again, literally, and they are about to feel it. And there's only one thread that's stopping them, and that's actually the Democratic Party holding out on funding the government at all. A whole lot of people were hurt. But if you just go along with that big, beautiful bill and you don't make changes, a whole lot of changes to it, you're going to all be peasants anyway, feeling permanent hurt. You know, listen to this.
Yeah, the job market is clearly getting rough, and that is unusual when you have an economy that's still expanding. But we have a number of things going on. We have tariffs going on. We have economic uncertainty going on. We have AI going on. And all those things together have led to a significant slowdown in the jobs market. We even had 1 month, this last month, where jobs may have declined. We don't have those official numbers yet because of the government shutdown.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Tanuk Kuti says, hey, I don't know what the hell kind of name that is. But in any case, how is that disastrous? The top 10% holding up the economy, lifted up the quality of this. What the hell? That's what's going on in Argentina. The top 10% is holding up the economy, which is bankrupt, borrowing from the U.S. And we're about to get into that. Look, watch.
Shutdown, but ADP, the private forecaster, said we lost jobs last.
This is where the problem is, because Argentina's plan is to dump the peso, adopt the U.S. dollar. That's their plan for this same type of economic process. Do you know what the U.S.'s plan is? To adopt crypto. But guess, and that's exactly how you're going to sell out your entire country to the elite, period. See, the U.S. is one of the countries where the middle class and every citizen has an equal right. It's not, I mean, all democracies function like that, right? The U.S. American citizens have more guns than the citizens of China and Russia put together, right? That's another thing that makes them unique. And but they're lucky to be in a democracy where they actually own everything. The people own it. What's happening right now is the complete total sellout of the United States. It will be a privatized entity if people do not stand the fuck up. Watch.
Last month. But let's look at two interesting things. So ADP, which is a big payroll processing company, as everybody I'm sure knows, for the last 4 months, virtually all the job creation has come from big companies, these red boxes here. The smaller companies, all the way down to the very smallest business, 1 to 19 employees, they've actually been losing jobs for 4 months. Some exceptions, obviously, but in total, losing jobs. So small business has really been hurting. The other thing that's interesting, and these are BLS numbers, Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, is what kinds of jobs have we been creating? We've been creating jobs in leisure and hospitality, which means restaurants and hotels and things like that.
This is key to listen to. Watch where the money's being made.
We've been creating jobs in education and health. We obviously are a nation putting more and more into health. But everything else, we've basically been losing jobs. So whether it's finance or even information technology, notwithstanding AI, or the professions like law or business.
Notwithstanding AI, right? But that's also what is one of the things that's doing well out of Argentina. It's nothing else. And this is also what's happening in the U.S. too at the same time. Watch.
We're losing jobs at the moment, and we're only creating jobs in these sectors. And so what does all that amount to? It amounts to the fact that more and more Americans are being unemployed for longer and longer. We define long-term unemployment as being unemployed for 27 weeks or more. And that percentage is now up to just over a quarter of all the unemployed are now considered long-term unemployed. Put aside COVID, that is the highest percentage since back here in 2016, and it is rising. And so you have more and more people in the long-term unemployed ranks. So it's not surprising when you look at these polls that you still find huge percentage of Americans who think the economy is getting worse, not better, who think that we're on the wrong track, not the right track. Because when you look at the average, ordinary, everyday Americans, they are simply not getting better off at the moment.
Putting your together, the explosion of AI costing some of those jobs as well. So big picture, Steve, we were just talking briefly in the break about this idea of a bubble right now in the stock market. And the fears, as Andrew Ross Sorkin, our friend, is writing about in this new book, 1929, and has been talking about, but he's not alone in this, that there may be some kind of a crash coming. What's your sense of how big the bubble?
Now, you hear this. There could be some kind of a crash coming. And this is where Europeans, listen, Europeans, no matter if you're on the internet, you see all these Russian trolls pretending like they're Americans who are like, Trump, 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 Trump. You see all these trolls talking about, oh, the economy is doing great in the United States. No problem at all. Listen, I talk to American people over the telephone every day. I'm an American citizen myself. I know what's going on in the nation's capital. I know what's going on in New York. I know what's going on in Chicago. I know what's going on in North Carolina. I'm talking to Americans. Actually, I just met some Americans that came over here from the damn U.S. government a month ago. Not the federal government, but a state government. Now, because other states come here to Denmark to study certain things that they're doing and adopt it. It's been going on for a long time. Now, here's the thing. You got to understand, don't listen to the trolls. People in the U.S. are feeling the crunch. The average person, you see it, is being reported on. People on TV. Look, when you see a person's face on television saying something, that's a real person. If you just listen to trolls in the comment section, yo, they don't have an identity. You don't know who the hell that is. So be careful. Now I'm saying Europeans, you just heard the man say a bubble is coming. And a bubble is coming because of the economic practices of this administration. It's a self-induced bubble, and it doesn't make it any better. But the man's policy and how he behaves, this administration, is about to cause this bubble. So, for example, how it would affect Europe. Listen, right now is not the good time to buy a house, sadly, because when that bubble hits, guess what? The value of your home is not going up, right? It's better to buy a home once you see Trump is out of office, because then shit will get better. I'm just telling you, that's what that means. OK, the economy, the Western economy is about to take a hit because of Trump. And this is not the worst. This is not the worst for just, the Western economy is not the only bad thing that's going to take a hit because of this bubble. American citizens are going to feel the pain. And they're going to be reminded of what poverty is like. And if you didn't care about the poor in the United States of America before, there will be more.
The bubble is and how painful the burst might be.
Stocks are very, very expensive. They're as expensive as they've almost ever been when you look at it relative to earnings and things like that. There's no question about that. A lot of what's been driving the stock market, as you know, has been what we call the Magnificent Seven, the big technology, mostly big technology companies that are involved in the AI boom. But other stocks are up as well. Look, predicting the stock market is honestly a fool's game. I don't try to do it. I don't think any good investor tries to do it. I personally would be very surprised if we had a crash along the lines of 1929. But it's certainly possible that the stock market will correct in here somewhere. It's had that extraordinary run that we talked about. Has had that extraordinary run. The extraordinary that it had half of 2025. So that's happening on that side. And then what's happening in terms of wages for people, which partially reflects, obviously, that slowdown in economic growth, is that for the first time in a number of years, people toward the bottom are doing worse than people toward the top. You had a whole period going back to 2016 here where wages for people at the bottom quartile were rising faster than for the rest of the other quartiles further up.
This big, beautiful bill is coming at this same time that unemployment is up, wages are coming down, and the big, beautiful bill has not kicked in yet. It is going to kick in on November 1st. But if the government is not funded, that means the pain is going to be distributed differently. OK, if the big, beautiful bill goes through as it is, the pain is going to be directly at the middle class and the poor. It won't be necessarily federal workers that keep a job, the federal government workers and things like that. They'll be okay outside of the slashes that Trump has promised to make even after this. Right. He's promised to fire because libertarians believe in small government. So there are more government slashes coming according to this big, beautiful bill. You got to understand that. Right now. So basically, If Democrats do not hold out for an impeachment of Trump, if the Congress and the Senate do not impeach Trump, and if they do little to adjust this bill, because keep in mind, you're dealing with a hostile administration. So anything that comes out of Congress and the Senate, he's already promised to not even listen to the Congress and Senate anyway. He doesn't care. And you have to understand why. Because libertarians want small government anyway. So not funding anything is okay with him. You see, the only thing he's interested in is a check in his own pocket. You see, you have to understand that's how it works. And I'm going to explain that more in detail. But look, here we go.
But that has helped fuel this purchasing power. Huge
So
rise.
there we go. Now, let's go over to this next one. Let's see here. Boom.
We have breaking news just moments ago. New inflation data just out, giving us another snapshot of how prices are trending, what direction they're headed for Americans. CNN's Matt Egan is with me now. Tell me what's coming in.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Kate, the snapshot is not a pretty one because we're back to 3% inflation in the United States for the first time since January. So these new numbers out show that prices were up by 0.3% between August and September. That's actually slightly better than expected. However, the annual inflation rate moved in the wrong direction from 2.9% to 3%. And as I mentioned, that is a new 8-month high for inflation. And when you look at the trend, what's important to remember is that inflation was going in the right direction, right? Earlier this year, back in April, inflation went down to 2.3%. That's the dip in the middle of that chart. So that goes back to September, back when then candidate Trump was on the campaign trail saying inflation was out of control. But you can see clearly we're in a worse spot now than we were last fall when inflation was maybe in the right direction, right? Earlier this year, back in April, inflation went down to 2.3%. That's the dip in the middle of that chart. So that goes back to September, back when then candidate Trump was on the campaign trail saying inflation was out of control. But you can see clearly we're in a worse spot now than we were last fall when inflation was maybe the biggest issue, certainly the biggest economic issue on the minds of voters.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty telling. And when we dig into the categories to try to understand the why here, okay, gasoline prices did go up between August and September, right? So during the month of September, prices were up. In fact, gas prices increased by about 8% on a monthly basis. That was the biggest monthly increase in about 2 years. But this is not just about gas prices, which are, they're still relatively low, even if they went up. They're also, this is about the grocery store, which is another pain point for consumers, and which is also being driven in part by tariffs, because we did see significant increases for a number of different items. Canned vegetables, ham, other items of food went up. But then there's other tariff-exposed items that have gotten more expensive. For example, apparel. Apparel went up by almost 1% on a monthly basis.
They warned this was coming. They warned that it was.
Look, production of nothing has gone up in the U.S. The U.S. is not producing more of anything. The man has done nothing outside of AI. He's done nothing. Cloud services. The average person can't eat cloud service. The average person can't eat AI. They need real shit. They need to produce real things to eat or trade real things, trade services, and the U.S. has destroyed U.S. trade. They destroyed it. Trump has destroyed it. He's destroyed small farms, small business. I mean, I don't know if you saw in this last data analysis, the one before this, but Trump, he has harmed small businesses across the country, right? That's terrible. The whole concept of government, if you're going to have one, is to improve your life. That is the whole concept of government, to improve you, the citizens' lives in ways that you cannot do independently of yourself. That is the goal. Where's the tax money going to? Where's your tax dollars going to? Why are the taxes not used to improve the actual people's lives who are paying it. State tax, federal tax. Now, I understand the federal government is totally against states having sovereign rights right now and is screwing over every person who pays federal payroll taxes and federal taxes out of their checks, monthly for every hour that they work. But this shit is about to be off the chain. And Americans really need to know where to focus their energy at, whose fault it really is, and be clear about resolving this because you have an opportunity to stop it if you want to. You've been warned, so you can do something. So you have an opportunity if you want to. But if you think Donald Trump remaining in office is going to be an option to things getting better, you out of your mind, because he has a total different philosophy. Just like Argentina. Why do you think he sent the 40 billion to Argentina? Like, think about that. What is going on in Argentina in the first place? What's happening with Argentina? Who is in Argentina? What is in Argentina? Hold on. Look at this. Hold on.
Here across the country, imagine if everybody got 230 million.
Two seconds. It's jamming up here. Hold on. The hard line into this phone. Now check this out. Check this out, y'all. Thanks for staying with me. Now let me just revert over because I pulled up some bad clip and it actually required more bandwidth, so that's why I plugged the line in. But check this out. I'm about to go into something to segue into the concept of libertarianism, just so people can hear how this aligns with the economic data that you're seeing, because it is directly connected to Trump's philosophy, Elon Musk's philosophy, Peter Thiel. And let me tell you, these people don't have such a nice view of common people, So let's just go into that now. I'm going to find one more clip, but let's just throw this out here right now here.
Excellent question. And it's a big one because what's happening in Argentina right now is one of the most radical real-world tests of libertarian economics in modern times. Let's break it down clearly. Why people call Argentina a libertarian experiment. Argentina elected Javier Milei as president in late 2023. He's an economist and self-declared anarcho-capitalist, a very extreme branch of libertarianism. Milei's government is being called a libertarian experiment because he's trying to apply libertarian ideas directly to a national economy that's been suffering from sky-high inflation, over 200%, chronic budget deficits, currency collapse and corruption in government spending. So he's testing what happens when you shrink the state as much as possible and let market forces run almost free. What libertarianism is, in plain terms, libertarianism is a political and economic philosophy based on three big principles. 1. Individual freedom. People should be free to make their own choices as long as they don't harm others. 2. Limited government. The state should do very little, mainly protect private property, enforce contracts, and provide security. Everything else, like education, healthcare, even money, should ideally be run by the private sector. 3. Free markets. The economy should operate with minimal or no government interference. No subsidies, no...
Now you see that right there, right? This is what they've been doing in Argentina, right? Now, if you apply this, we're going to get into what happens if you apply this to the U.S. And this is what they're trying to apply in the big, beautiful, ugly bill. Make no mistake about it. They're trying to privatize healthcare, which is going to drive the price of healthcare up. Everything that they're doing is an experiment on the people who will have to carry the burden are the middle class and the poor. They will carry the burden, and the pain will be deep. Let me tell you. And the rewards for the top 10% are going to be phenomenal.
No price controls, no heavy regulation. How Millet is applying those ideas. Millet has cut government ministries from 18 down to 9, eliminated subsidies on fuel, transportation and energy, fired tens of thousands of public employees, devalued the peso to bring it closer to real market value, proposed dollarizing the economy, replacing the Argentine peso with the US dollar, wants to abolish the central bank.
Now you heard that, right? Now check this out. This is true. This is what they're planning, to replace it with the US dollar. But when you apply liberalism to the US, what do you think they want to replace it with? You just think about that.
Bank, arguing that it causes inflation by printing too much money. He calls this his chainsaw plan, cutting away the fat of the state. Why some support it. Supporters say Argentina's decades of corruption and inflation show that big government failed. Radical change is needed to restore credibility and attract investment. In theory, freer markets create efficiency, innovation and long-term growth. Why others fear it. Critics warn, deep cuts are hurting ordinary people through massive price hikes and unemployment. Public services, education, healthcare, transport are collapsing. Dollarization could give up Argentina's monetary sovereignty. The poor and middle class are bearing most of the pain. In summary, idea, libertarian view, Millet's action, role of government, as small as possible, slashing ministries, deregulating money, private sound money, dollarization, end of central bank, welfare and subsidies shouldn't exist or be
End of central bank. Now, who do you think they would like to replace the central bank with? A king, right? A private investor, right? I'm just telling you.
Massive cuts. Economy,
in this
free
case,
market, price controls removed. Taxes should be low, pledging to lower taxes later. So when people say Argentina is a libertarian experiment, they mean it's a real-world test of what happens when you actually run a country with libertarian economic principles, something rarely tried on a national.
So Donald Trump had to bail out a failed libertarian project. But see, once you figure out how libertarians think about common people, the middle class, the working class, and I can assure you, there is no one listening and no one in this chat that is from anything else but the working class or the poor. I can assure you, there are no rich people listening to me. None of you are rich. So when I'm talking wealthy, the 10%, I ain't talking about you because you're nowhere in their class. Most of you have never met one billionaire before in your life, just to keep it real. So let me continue to play. Here's the next part. Look, you see why applying liberalism nationally can be dangerous. Now let's check it out. There's more. Watch. No offense to anybody. I'm just keeping it real. Billionaires don't have time to be in the chat.
When libertarian ideas, small government, free markets, minimal regulation, privatization, are applied to an entire nation, the effects are very uneven. Some groups benefit enormously, while others face serious hardship. Let's break it down carefully. Why applying libertarianism nationally can be dangerous. Libertarianism assumes that markets are more efficient and fair than governments. But in reality, markets don't automatically protect the poor, sick, elderly, or marginalized. When the state withdraws too quickly, as in Argentina under Javier Milei, or potentially in parts of the US, if similar ideas took hold, big imbalances appear.
Yo, I'm a cat karma. Exactly. The government should be the payer. Privatization always leads to higher costs and worse health outcomes. And this is what you find out. The problem with libertarianism is They drive up costs for healthcare, protect less people. Same thing with private education. They drive up costs of education, technical schools, every kind of education. They drive up the cost and educate less people. I mean, this is a serious problem, but watch.
Number one, the core risk. Unequal power markets reward those who already have capital, money, land, assets, education, marketable skills, access to networks or credit. When government steps back, removing subsidies, welfare, labor protections or public education, those advantages multiply. The poor, the elderly and the working class have less bargaining power, so they lose protections faster than they can adapt. Groups most vulnerable to harm, group why they're at risk. Low-income workers and the poor. Subsidies for transport, food and energy vanish. Wages may lag behind new market prices. Poverty can spike fast. Public sector employees, government layoffs are a hallmark of libertarian reform. Tens of thousands can lose jobs suddenly. Elderly and disabled, if pensions or public health care are privatized, they face unaffordable costs.
Starting to sound familiar? We're getting close. Now watch.
Students and families, public education funding and tuition subsidies shrink. Private schooling becomes dominant. Small farmers and rural poor, without subsidies or price supports, they face global competition and market shocks. Urban renters, deregulated markets can cause rent surges and housing insecurity. Women and single parents, they disproportionately rely on public services, childcare, healthcare, education. Cuts hit them hard.
So this is why libertarians are not actually for people. They're for themselves, like totally. And you will serve them because they literally believe they know what's best for animal life in terms of human beings on earth. Like they see you as animals. You are like vermin. Middle class and poor people are like vermin, which is why they're not going to be cautious about how they go about making their plans, their political plans, spending money, allocating funds, distributing wealth. They're not going to give a damn about you when they get into these things. And this is what that big, beautiful, ugly bill was about. Basically setting the path for libertarianism in the USA, like straight up. And it's going to hurt. There's going to be immediate effects. If you already think poverty is a problem in the US, you will get more poverty. It will multiply. It's just very simple. If you think homelessness is a problem in the US, this big, beautiful, ugly bill will multiply it. You will get more homeless people, not less. Okay? You will get more of all the bad things and less of all the good things if you go down this big, beautiful bill path, because it is a libertarian concept.
Hardest. Cut who benefits the most, group why they gain. Wealthy individuals and corporations. Lower taxes, deregulation and privatization mean bigger profits and fewer constraints. Foreign investors. Stable, business-friendly environments attract capital inflows if inflation and legal risk fall. Export sectors, devaluation and market freedom make exports more competitive. Entrepreneurs and tech elites, less regulation encourages innovation and risk-taking. Political elites aligned with business consolidate influence through privatization deals and capital network.
Now that's who benefits. Hear this one more time so we know who benefits from this. Oh my God. I mean, I don't see you in the picture.
Regulation and privatization mean bigger profits and fewer constraints.
That's for wealthy people. Here, hold on. None of us listening, none of us in the chat are in this group that benefit.
The individuals and corporations. Lower taxes, deregulation and privatization mean bigger profits and fewer constraints. Foreign investors. Stable, business-friendly environments attract capital inflows if inflation and legal risk fall. Export sectors, devaluation and market freedom make exports more competitive. Entrepreneurs and...
But what are you exporting? You ain't exporting soybeans anymore. And what else are you not really exporting? And what is Donald Trump doing to even work on production? You know, I mean, just a thought.
And tech elites, less regulation encourages innovation and risk-taking. Political elites aligned with business consolidate influence through privatization deals and capital networks.
Consolidate, people who want to consolidate interest. That's who's going to benefit. People who want to consolidate influence through privatization deals and capital. That's the top 10. That's nobody in the chat, nobody listening. You know, the folks that tend to come around me are regular folk. I mean, I'm just saying, regular folk. I'm doing okay myself. I have a couple of friends that are doing okay myself here where I live in Denmark. In the US, most of the people I know who are middle class, strong middle class, are talking about a goddamn problem in the US. You know, so, you tell me.
Privatization deals and capital networks.
Now, this is who is going to be hurt, right? And this is just typical libertarianism. We haven't gotten to the part of how it's really going to be in detail in the United States of America regarding this big, beautiful, ugly deal if Congress funds it. So watch this. If they move forward without any negotiations, let's watch.
Number 2, the shock problem. When libertarian reforms happen too quickly, what economists call shock therapy, the economy may stabilize on paper, lower inflation, balanced budget, but the social fabric tears.
Does that sound familiar? I mean, you always hear these MAGA trolls talking about the economy's doing great. The stock market's doing great. Yeah, but is that translating down to the middle class and the poor? The people who pay taxes? 75% of the federal budget is paid for by people that clock into 9-to-5 jobs, get paid by the hour. You know, I mean, no, it's not trickling down. That's the problem. But let's keep on listening.
Sudden poverty surges, homelessness increases, protests and strikes erupt. Democracy itself can weaken as disillusioned citizens turn to authoritarian figures for relief. This is a known pattern. Chile, 1970s-80s, Chicago boys' reforms under Pinochet stabilized inflation but deepened inequality. Russia, 1990s, rapid privatization created billionaires and mass poverty. Argentina,
Now, if you just look at the quality of life in Russia, Russia didn't do too great with libertarianism. They didn't do too great. And, one has to ask, why would Trump send Argentina $40 billion? But it's because these same tech people, these same folk, this group of billionaires in the U.S. that Donald Trump associates with, they stand the hedge fund people. They losing billions in Argentina because of corrupt governance, but they paid each other off there. You see, that's the problem. So Donald Trump is trying to keep Argentina alive. But guess who the political opposition is in Argentina? It's actually middle class people that want their fucking country back that's really been stolen by some elitists, like straight up. So this guy, Donald Trump, he funded anti-democracy. You got to understand that. He funded an anti-democratic government, an anti-freedom government, an anti-for-the-people government. He went against that. He funded the anti-people's government. At the same time, you have to understand that your tax dollars have gone to this now in Argentina. Now, let's keep going because it's going to get more interesting.
Inflation dropped, but unemployment and hunger rose sharply among low-income.
In other words, he gave money. In other words, he gave money to another dictator like him that's been running his people through the same shit Donald Trump is about to run the American people through.
States, the same pattern could appear, though in different form. Sector, potential consequence. Healthcare, end of Medicare, Medicaid. Millions lose coverage or face market pricing for care. Education, public schools weakened, private or charter models dominate, inequality widens. Labor, unions weaken, minimum wage abolished, job security falls. Infrastructure, roads, bridges and transit privatized, higher tolls and user fees. Environment, deregulation accelerates pollution and climate risks. Social safety net, welfare and unemployment benefits cut drastically. In this model, the bottom 60% of income earners would likely suffer losses in security and opportunity, while the top 10 to 1% would gain from lower taxes, looser regulation and control over privatized sectors.
Facts, Matthew.
Number 4. The long-term dynamic libertarian theory assumes that free markets will eventually lift all boats. But without strong counterbalances, wealth concentration accelerates. Political power follows money. Democracy weakens because ordinary citizens lose influence. Public trust in government erodes further, a cycle that feeds populism and instability. 5. The balancing view. It's not that all libertarian ideas are harmful. Some, like reducing corruption, increasing efficiency, and limiting unnecessary bureaucracy, can be healthy. But pure libertarianism, total deregulations, minimal welfare, is rarely sustainable for a modern, unequal society. Every successful democracy, US, Canada, Europe, Japan, etc., uses a hybrid model, market economy plus social safety net plus public investment. When that balance is broken, volatility follows. Summary, category, likely outcome in a libertarian experiment. Inflation, budget, short-term improvement. Wealth inequality expands sharply. Poverty, hunger increases, especially short-term. Public services, collapsing or privatized. Foreign investment grows if stability holds. Social stability, risk of unrest. Democracy can weaken as inequality grows. Bottom line. Applying libertarianism to a state like Argentina or the US can stabilize markets but destabilize society. Winners, wealthy elites, investors, corporations, and those already economically secure. Losers, the poor, working class, public sector, and anyone dependent on collective systems, education, health, housing. It works for capital, but not necessarily for people.
Now, I just want to qualify something here. Everyone that's in the chat, put a 1 if you are part of the working class. That's all I want to know today. If you've been listening to this message and you're part of the working class, and I hope you know what that means. I don't mean you own your own business and you're, multi-millionaire and you write your own checks. That's not what I mean. I mean, people that work for somebody else in a company and an institution and a blah, 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 driving a truck, doing anything, working in the health industry, hospitals, working for government, you know what I'm saying, right? I hope you know what I'm saying. Okay. Okay, Franco, you put 0 at 1. Okay, 1. I got you. I'm just sure because I just want people to know that this shit is not made up. This is not made up at all. And I live in a country that has strong balances. Denmark, although I'm an American citizen, Denmark has strong union regulations. Denmark has strong support for health care. Everybody has universal health care here. So our taxes go to holding up the healthcare institutions and the educational institutions. We have universal health care here. So a lot of other stuff is privatized. You can go out and do it, and you can even go to a private hospital. If you want everyone that's part of the public healthcare plan here in Denmark, the universal healthcare plan, can get access to the private hospital too if the public one can't seem to know what to do best or fix your issue fast enough. So it's not a separation. There's nothing separate for any class of people really in Denmark, not fundamentally. You see what I mean? And a lot of Western nations function like that. Well, there is libertarianism in other ways, like, when you sell your goods, your right to trade, open trade. If I want to order something from most of the countries in the world, I'm not really paying a tariff if it doesn't cost us, if it's not a special thing. I'm not paying a huge tariff on it or anything like that. If it doesn't, interfere with certain markets, there's no tariffs. But having said that, I myself am not facing this problem in the U.S. as an American citizen because I live outside. But I'm just warning my everyday American citizens, middle class, working class, students, poor, that if this big, beautiful bill goes through without it being renegotiated, this is what is in that bill. This is if you pay attention and been watching everything that's been in the U.S. television, the data, even the political discussions, all of this shit, it's been described in terms of what Trump has been doing within the bounds of libertarianism. So let's go on, because watch. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I got kicked out again. Now, let me just pick up where I stopped. For those of you that will watch the replay, you won't realize that it's been cut off. The system actually pauses as soon as there's any signal, disconnection or anything like that. But in any case, let's continue. Donnie, what's up, bro? All right. So this is what would happen now that we've listened to looked into what libertarianism is, how it parallels what Donald Trump is doing, right? How it affected Argentina, the nation, right? Everybody click like also if you do me that favor. Now that we've looked into that, and of course, I did warn my European friends and people that's out there right now might not be the right time to buy a home. I hate to say that, but there is an expected bubble coming out of the U.S. So just so you know that there is a suspected bubble, economic bubble coming out of the U.S. So, if you're an investor, a home investor, or whatever, you might want to, or if you want to sell your home, you might want to do it real quick if you're depending on using that money because something's coming. You might not want to buy a new house either at the moment because you don't know what the bubble is going to be. You want to make sure you make a good deal with your lease so you can afford whatever economic changes are to come, because it's going to not just only affect the U.S. American citizens drastically economically, it's going to affect others outside. So now back to this. We looked at what libertarianism and how, it's been played out in Argentina. They got our money, right? And it's basically they're bankrupt because of libertarianism, and they are not the popular party of the people. There's a freer party for everyday people that's trying to get their country back. So you should be aware of that. Donald Trump gave money to an anti-democracy candidate, anti-democracy president, anti-people president, essentially in Argentina. And I don't mean to say that all of the wealthy are evil, but that corruption is what brought down Argentina. Donald Trump wants to implement the same type in the U.S. So on that talking point, here's what happens when you apply libertarianism specifically to the U.S., even though you've already been seeing it. If a lot of people don't know what libertarianism is, the term, the definition of it, but trust me, what you have been witnessing it. Donald Trump's play, the big beautiful bill, is libertarianism. It's pure libertarianism in the U.S. sense. But let's look at it now. If you apply the theory libertarianism, let's just say it's not Donald Trump doing it. He didn't. That big beautiful bill is something else. Okay, let's just say that's real. That's true. It's totally something else. In case it is totally something else, let's look at what libertarianism is anyway. If you would apply it to the U.S. here.
Aggressively in the United States, the same pattern could appear, though in different form. Sector, potential consequence. Healthcare. End of Medicare, Medicaid. Millions lose coverage or face market pricing for care. Education, public schools weakened. Private or charter models dominate. Inequality widens. Labor, unions weaken. Minimum wage abolished. Job security falls. Infrastructure, roads, bridges and transit privatized. Higher tolls and user fees. Environment, deregulation accelerates pollution and climate risks. Social safety net, welfare and unemployment benefits cut drastically. In this model, the bottom 60% of income earners would likely suffer losses in security and opportunity, while the top 10 to 1% would gain from lower taxes.
All right, so that's right. That's just libertarianism, period, right? Now, here is the U.S. one. If we take Argentina's libertarian shift and hypothetically apply it to the U.S., let's look at this. Now, I'm going to do the narration myself. Sometimes I like to let the AI do it because it's easier, and I can also listen and chime in on certain parts that I like. But let me bring this back. Now, you see the chart here. Police area, right? Policy area, governmental spending, and then more healthcare. And we're going to go down the line. So here we go. Wants to abolish, right? What the Argentinian government did, wants to abolish the central bank and replace the peso with the U.S. dollar, right? I don't know how many countries want to do that, but what would the effect be in the U.S.? Boom. The effect in the U.S. would be, what would it mean if you applied to the U.S.? U.S. might abolish or drastically limit the Federal Reserve, replace public control of money with private or crypto-based systems. American citizens, you really need to pay attention to this. Private is a code word for king. You must understand that. You will be giving away your sovereignty, not to another nation necessarily, but to a small group of people, officially. And those small group of people can do whatever they want with that. You see, you have to understand that. You need to pay very close attention to what is in that big, beautiful bill, like your freedom depends on it. Like your children's freedom depends on it. Like your grandkids' freedom depends on it. Like your wife's freedom depends on it. Like your husband, if you're your wife, freedom, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, buddy, chap, pal, all of that. You know, anybody that you love, if there's anyone you love, you need to pay attention to this big, beautiful bill, because this is what they literally have been talking about the whole time. You know, straight up. Like, look at this. Just look at this. I mean, Kamala Harris told people, I hate to say that. I know a lot of people are triggered by her, but that's because you're not listening to the words. It's something else you don't like about her laugh or something. But pay attention. What it might mean, right? So let's go back. Now we did the what it might mean. So let's go back to government spending and welfare. Look, what it was in Argentina, it meant massive cuts to public spending, including energy, transport, and welfare subsidies. What it could mean in the U.S., right? Sharp cuts to social services, to Social Security. Somebody came in the chat the other day and was like, what are you talking about? I have my Social Security. I have my Medicaid. Okay. I don't know. Like, you better pay attention to the news. Because November 1st is coming up pretty fast. But in any case, cuts in that, right? Food stamps and unemployment insurance, right? Now, who will it benefit? Let's go over to that part. Who will it benefit? Wealthy taxpayers, corporations, lower taxes for them. That's what that would mean for them. Now, who is it bad for? If it's good for somebody, it's got to be bad for somebody else, right? You know who is bad for? The everyday American. The working class is who is bad for. Now, libertarianism. Let's apply it. Well, how did they try to apply it in Argentina? Boom. Moving towards privatizing healthcare models, ending subsidies for medicine and clinics. That's how they did it in Argentina. You know, the collapsed government that you had to send $20 to $40 billion to for no reason. You don't know anything about what's going on there. Nobody in TV, nobody in the no one in legacy media even talked about the opposition party like they're nobody, when really they're the majority of the population, the working class. It's like, what is this? You know, pay attention. That's how they tried to do it in Argentina. What would happen in the U.S. if they apply that same thing? Privatization of Medicare and Medicaid, fewer public hospitals, market pricing for all care. In other words, more expensive covers less. More expensive covers less people. More people out of healthcare, having access to a doctor. You're leaving yourself wide open for a pandemic. But, you know, people aren't worried about that because maybe they just want to kill everybody that's infected by something instead of give people a vaccine or give them medical care so they can get help. Who knows? You're just talking about libertarians here. You know, you might want to start thinking about that when you think about a libertarian, like straight up. What will it do? You know, now you see, look at this. Who will it benefit? Private insurers, pharmaceutical companies, right? But it won't benefit the middle class or the poor at all. But this is what is in the big, beautiful bill. I mean, look, education. Let's talk about that. Libertarianism. Reducing national education funding, encouraging private and religious schools. I mean, they already been working on this in the U.S. and they want to do it even more. Look, they've already been doing that. But that's Argentina. That's what happened in Argentina. Look, starting to get it. But if you do it in the U.S., what would it look like? Elimination of the Department of Education. Bingo. Already happened pretty much. They promised to do it anyway. Doesn't it ring a bell if you've been watching the news? I mean, if you've been watching this seriously, I don't just mean here and there like it's a joke. Federal aid and student loans phase out. Schools they rely on, private tuition and vouchers. I mean, yo, that's not good, but that's what it would look like if you apply the same thing in the libertarian ideas in the United States. Who will benefit from this? Wealthy families, elite, private schools. I don't know. Are you in that picture? You one of the wealthy families? Are you part of the elite? Right? Elite private schools. Anybody here went to an elite private school? Put 1 in the chat if you went to an elite private school. If you didn't, put a 2 in the chat. I'm assuming, I'm just going to say none. I mean, you know, I know a couple of people that went to a few elite college schools in the U.S., Brown University, you know, Georgetown or whatever. But goddamn, knowing 1 out of 80, you may as well just drop the 1. That doesn't count, you know. You ain't in that really. You're not in that. Hold on here. Energy and utilities. You want to know what libertarianism was like in Argentina? How that hit energy and utilities? Let's check it out. Well, it seems like removing subsidies for gas, electricity, public transportation, prices now market based. Hey, y'all, your tax dollars, you ain't really going to get any help from it, but you're going to keep paying it. Now, what would that look like in the U.S.? That was Argentina. What does it look like in the U.S.? If you just go the same kind of libertarianism they did in Argentina into the federal state subsidies for utilities and transport, for market pricing for fuel, electricity, and trains. Most MAGA people don't even really know what the fuck this means. Most MAGA people don't even know if they're already getting subsidies. Most MAGA people don't know if they're getting any gas or electric or utility subsidies. Most of them don't know, because I had this conversation with a sister in Texas just yesterday over the phone, right? And we were saying that the issue with Republican states is they don't educate their own voters to what their own government does, even government services that they already have. They're just notoriously known for not really educating them, for miseducating people. For example, it's not called Obamacare, goddammit. It's called the American Affordable Health Care Act. OK, so when you call it something else, you're not really educating people properly. You know, they're actually bigoted. They're making people think something bad is happening to them that's actually helping them when they do that based on bigotry. You see, so people are out there and they was like, yeah, fuck Obamacare. Now they're starting to figure out that they're the ones who use it the most. Yo, MAGA states do not educate their taxpayers to policy at all. But in any case, that was there. That was in Argentina. Now, what would it look like? Yeah, that was the U.S. And who does this benefit? Who does it benefit when they cut all of those subsidies? Energy companies and investors. Okay, so if you have some stock and you invested in some companies, you might benefit. How much does that stock cost right now? Is that stock really, you see what I'm saying? Can you afford to buy that stock? The average person, how much does matter of fact, let me pivot over to the stock market just to be real like this. Let me see something here. Energy stock market. Let me see. Just because I want to know myself right now. I don't invest in energy myself, but I invest in other things. But let me see here. Let me just go here to Yahoo real quick. Yahoo Finance and see what it says. Energy, right? Bloomberg.com. Let's take a look at that. See what they say. Boom. Oops, why is it doing that? Finance, okay, here. Alrighty, give me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. The S&P Energy, okay, 500. Where is it at? I mean, you're not going to buy stock. What is the average stock in costing in energy? Let's see here. Anybody know that in the chat? What's the average stock looking like? How much average energy company cost? I just want to know for reference, right? Just so people can have an idea, because you can get confused. Somebody with a little more money than you, or a troll, might make you think, oh yeah, this shit's easy. You could just invest in that and that will solve it all. Okay, but look, for example, Exxon, you want to buy some stock in Exxon? That's $115 right now, one piece of stock. Then you need to know a little bit about the stock market to know, well, for Exxon, that's gas, right? Okay. You need to know, when are you going to get a return on that in the first place, for that to cover all the difference of the subsidies. And are you going to continue to pay the same amount of tax while all this goes on? So who got a tax break in the big, beautiful, ugly bill? Who got a tax break there? So it ain't adding up, because it's not really designed to benefit the middle class or the poor. It's only designed to benefit the rich. Not even the millionaire. The average millionaire ain't really going to benefit. You might need to have a couple or a few $1,000,000, maybe, right? But the ones with the most money will clean up. The average billionaire will just get whatever scraps is left over. Straight up. Employment. Employment. What does it say about employment here? Let's go back here. Right. Labor wages. This is what happened in Argentina. Weakening labor unions, removing wage controls and job protections. What would it look like in the U.S.? End of minimum wage laws, easier firing routes, less union power. I mean, this is the path. The U.S. is on its way to becoming the Argentina of North America, like straight up. That's what it's on its way to becoming. They want to implement the same practices. Who will benefit? Employers, corporations, and gig economy firms. Damn, that's deep, yo. Just economy firms. Like, okay, who's going to suffer the most? Workers with low bargaining power, service sector. That's who's going to suffer the most, of course. When it comes to housing, who's going to suffer the most? Renters, homeless, working class. Let's keep going. Hold on. Right, housing. This is what they did in Argentina regarding liberalism. Failed Argentina. Plans to deregulate rental markets and sell public land. I'm telling you, this is Donald Trump's policy in a nutshell. Did it work for Argentina? No. It didn't work for Argentina. Argentina's about to be in an uproar. Like, flat out. Why? Because the middle class and poor, we're screwed over. We're screwed over. The money's out there somewhere. It's just sitting in the billionaires' hands who rob the people. Look, plan to deregulate rental markets and sell public land. That's what happened in Argentina. Sell public land. Who did they sell the public land to? Didn't you hear about about Donald Trump's administration trying to make it possible to sell public land? Look. This is what it would look like in the U.S. Privatization of public housing, repeal of rent controls, sell-offs of federal land. You see, that's what liberalism did to Argentina. This is what it would do in the U.S. right here. Who does it benefit? Real estate investors, developers. But again, if you're a pickaninny, goddamn $1 million real estate investor, you're not really going to clean up. Because you're just going to be getting the scraps. I'm telling you, this is the same thing that happened the last time Trump came into office, except even worse. There was a lot of, low class real estate people talking about, yeah, but it's good for real estate. Man, that shit ain't work out. I mean, for very few people. And the land and the access that you get is the crumbs. I'm talking about, it's the scraps left over. The prime real estate you're not going to get. But check this out. Who suffers from that? Who suffers from it? Renters, homeless, working class. I mean, it's obvious who suffers from that. And it's nothing wrong. Don't be embarrassed to say you're working class. You know, working class people have loads of dignity. A decent working style lifetime. Yo, that's the average person. These are people with pride in who they are, pride in what they do. You know, don't be afraid to claim what you are. You know, knowing what you are is the best place to start from. You know, don't make any illusions about it. The environment. What did liberalism mean for the environment in Argentina? Look at that. What does it say? Deregulating environmental and agricultural rules to boost growth. What's it going to do in the U.S.? Rolling back EPA authority, looser pollution regulations. Who does it benefit? Oil, gas, mining, agriculture industries. Who's going to pay the price for that? Communities affected. What did I say? Communities affected by pollution and future generations. I mean, some people think that they're too good to think about the future generations. I don't give a fuck about the future generation. You know, taxation, simplifying taxes. Now, this is what liberalism did in where? Argentina. Simplified the same place you just sent your $40 billion out of your American taxpayer dollars. So whatever you're advocating for the wholesale of the United States of America, essentially to foreigners. What is Argentina trying to do? Exchange the peso for the US dollar. What would it look like in the US? Exchange the US dollar, close the Federal Reserve, and use crypto or privatize the Federal Reserve. Like straight up, that's what this is about. Simplifying taxes, aiming for a flat tax. That's what they did in Argentina. What would it look like in the US? Flat tax, consumption-based model replacing progressive taxes, okay? Progressive means it's different for different situations, what you can afford, right? And while it still drives industry. Who will that flat tax thing benefit? You heard Donald Trump talk about that shit all the time. High earner corporations. That's who it benefits. Who is going to be harmed most? Middle class, lower classes lose deductions and benefits. Right. So you were part of something progressive, but the big, beautiful, ugly bill that kicks in on November 1st rolls back all that shit. Public sector employment. What they did in Argentina, they cut tens of thousands of jobs. What does it look like in the U.S.? Let's see here. Major federal layoffs, privatization of agencies. Yes, who's going to own those agencies? Probably not very few Americans, you know. I'm telling you. It's the sellout. It's the wholesale out of the U.S. Private contractors, defense, or tech firms, right? Okay. Who's going to benefit? Government workers, teachers, civil servants, maybe, right, that are left. Hold on. Let me go back. Who's affected? I'm sorry. Private contractors benefit the people that will pay the price of government workers, teachers, and civil servants. Yeah, thank God I saw that error. Now, this is the last part coming. Summary of the effects, right? This is if you do what Argentina did in the United States, what it would look like, right? And it's happening already. Okay, let's see here. Inflation and budget. Argentina, sharp drop. Let me see. What happened? Sharp drop in inflation first. Fiscal surplus in decades, right? It's the first. So at first it looked like it worked, right? Let's go on. What would it look like if reproduced in the U.S.? Inflation could fall, but recession risk, inequality surge. Recession, I hope you know that affects middle class and poor people. That's what they're talking about in a recession. That's, in other words, you are going to feel the pain, basically. That's what that means. Recession, less of everything. Will your taxes go down? Probably not. You'll probably have to keep paying a lot of taxes, federal taxes included. Yeah. Who's going to benefit from that? We know who's going to benefit from that. The wealthy. let me see here. Poverty could spike, especially in states dependent on federal aid. Yep. Likely inflow of capital short term, but social unrest. Major unrest, likely unions retires, and middle class would resist. Would expand dramatically U.S. already high inequality. So, in a nutshell, that's what's in this big, beautiful, ugly bill, and it is a political philosophy. It's called liberalism. Donald Trump speaks highly of it. Peter Thiel's a liberalist. Elon Musk. They share these kind of ideas, and essentially what they believe in is that the wealthy class are the real rulers of the country. That's what they essentially mean. Democracy, civil rights, and all of that shit goes down the tubes, right? It's not your country anymore. And that is November 1st. If people still agree with that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people didn't, the MAGA supporters didn't know what their elected officials were doing. I believe that sincerely, as you hear a lot of MAGA folks come out and talk about this stuff. And the way they talk about it, you can hear they don't have any idea what is going on, right? Listen.
In that a moment, but Ed, first off, explain why Argentina is in need of this bailout.
Well, President Milei has imposed. Remember, Argentina is the most bankrupted country in history. It's defaulted 9 times on its sovereign debt. So this isn't a new story for Argentina. President Milei has imposed this austerity package to bring down hyperinflation. It succeeded for a while, but the hardship it imposed on the Argentinian voter led to his party's defeat in local elections a few weeks ago, in early September, which panicked the markets that he wasn't going to be able to sustain this strong peso, which he's used to keep inflation down, and therefore people started selling the peso. And that led to a run on the currency and the usual balance of payments problems that Argentina has chronically suffered from. And Milei now faces midterm elections in a few days from now, at the end of October. And if he loses those, then this once sort of globally praised experiment, libertarian experiment, will probably be over, because the opposition Peronista party are very opposed to these measures. So Trump's giving him $20 billion, pretty much with no strings attached and with no possibility of regional contagion. This is not like Mexico in the 90s or the Asian economies in the late 90s or the great financial crisis. This is a problem in one country. And the fact that he's giving this $20 billion credit swap line, but it's free money, at a time when the US government is shut down and when America's farmers are really suffering from the trade war and the close off of their export markets. And on top of that, that China is now buying its soybean from Argentina and not the United States. Well, this has the makings of a really egregious step by the president, to put it mildly.
One more on the motivation here. Why would the U.S. do any of that? Why would they want to save Argentina's economy in that way, Milei's presidency or his ruling coalition? What's in it for us?
Exactly. Hold on.
One more on the motivation here. Why would the U.S. do any of that? Why would they want to save Argentina's economy in that way, Milei's presidency or his ruling coalition? What's in it for us?
Well, so you must remember that Milei is a real darling of the MAGA right. And in fact, the CPAC conference was held in Buenos Aires last December with Milei as the star of the show and many of Trump's incoming cabinet.
Now you could see MAGA is largely composed of middle-class workers, people that check in from 9 to 5. So you can see and poor. A significant percentage is poor Americans. Now, you could see how what they voted for makes zero sense to their own interests at all. You have to understand, MAGA doesn't know a goddamn thing about South America, or let alone Argentina, the country most south. Okay, the average MAGA person doesn't know a damn thing about the United States. They don't go any damn where. Like seriously, let alone the world. Not in real practical terms. I'm saying, just when you compare them to others, they're not progressives. They're not interested. They hate other places and they hate other people. That's just how they think. Like, and I hate to sound so hard, but yes, that is how they roll. Now they had no idea of what liberalism is. They had no idea that Donald Trump was going to do this, right? They're not mind readers, right? To that extent. And they would have no idea of why Donald Trump is giving 20 to 40 billion dollars. But they voted for this man, not knowing that he intended on implementing the same policies that this same government had already implemented and had failed. This is the policy he wants to bring to the United States American people. And MAGA people are totally clueless about it. They're totally clueless about it, and that is the sad thing. So US, they have this situation that they're dealing with. My advice is, Americans that are listening, even if you're MAGA, whatever you are, first of all, if you voted for these measures, you need to go up to the Capitol building, to your representative office, hit the streets, use your time and energy to do something direct, and demand that they go back and start negotiating with the Democrats, and that you don't want anything like this. Start reading the shit that your representatives sign, because it's horrible. It is horrible. Democrats and independents are already doing what they need to do. They're out there organizing, they're demonstrating, they're fighting court cases, they're taking battles to the Supreme Court. But you got to remember, it is the right-wing Supreme Court that gave Trump life in the first place. So they are likely not to side on the side of the taxpayer, like straight up. Like, you just have to understand that. Some of them have received private gifts and have been doing that and are caught up in scandals. If it's not money scandals, it's ideological scandals, and it's unethical. It's scandals about ethics. Like, for example, one of the judges had an upside down flag just on January 6th. You see what I mean? His wife was involved with a lot of emails regarding January 6th. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is all connected. This is all connected. The Epstein files are connected, because it's going to let you know what judges and what congressional members, what senators, what civil servants are actually being blackmailed by others, right? And it's a lot, because you got to think, if it was 1,000 victims, and if you listen to any of the victims' accounts, they had multiple accounts. Many of them had multiple accounts with more than one person. One, what's her name? Gufree, right? She had accounts with 4 or 5 different individuals. You see what I mean? So if you got 1,000 victims, damn, that could potentially be 5,000 people being blackmailed, 5,000 people on tape. So you have to understand this. You're not dealing. The Supreme Court is not that supreme. Not when it comes to ethics in the United States. You have to understand that. They gave Trump life. Someone in there, 1 or 2, is involved with this libertarian shit and this concept as it's playing out, like straight up. And libertarianism is basically designed, the way they do it, to rob the people of sovereignty, to rob the everyday people of sovereignty to private industries, like straight up. That's what it's designed to do. They want to own you. They want to own the federal. They don't want you having your own Federal Reserve accountable to laws by people who vote. No, They want it to be a king, a bank, a private person, maybe 10 people, maybe Elon Musk, maybe Peter Thiel, maybe Jeff Bezos, maybe all of them together will own the dollar system of the United States. That's what they're planning. Like, you have to understand that. And they have said it openly. Crypto, change the US dollar to crypto. They always throw these things out in plain sight. They've done that. So America, we've covered all of that in the detail here. So Americans, y'all got to make some noise. To the people living in Europe or whatever, there is expected to be a bubble, a housing, a crisis coming out of the U.S., an economic bubble. And so whatever things you plan on doing right now economically, you may want to think very deeply about what you do. Let's see here.
The average American, they're really not buying any more stuff than they were buying 4 years ago, which means their standard of living isn't really going up. This group here, actually not this group, the top 10% of Americans account for 50% of everything that's bought in this country today. So think about that. The top 10% of Americans get 50% of the consumption. The bottom 90% of Americans get the other 50% of consumption.
And this is before the big, beautiful, ugly bill. They've just been leading in this libertarianism since Trump took office in January 20th. You know, these executive orders, right? This invasion of the federal government, firing all these people when he doesn't really have that much power to do that, you know, to not send people checks, like all kinds of stuff. And the man is planning on doing more outside of just the big, beautiful, ugly bill. So people, just be prepared. Just be prepared. Like,
and your third,
states, turn to your citizens, turn to your governors, turn to your senators, turn to your congressional members, turn to your mayors, your local mayors in your town, turn to the people in your state. Like, states need to state up, because this man is not planning on leaving power, and he looks like he's selling off. He looks like he's selling off tickets to the bunker, like straight up. He looks like he's selling off tickets to the bunker, the way he's acting like you can just privately pay for the East Wing and you can privately pay for the bunker. Like, yes, like this dude is not planning on leaving, even if he loses an election. Like, straight up, he is planning on going all out. Just remember, people are saying that, and it's not a coincidence. You know, not the only person saying it. You know, people are saying it in different ways. You know, all over the net. The bunker under the East Wing will also be upgraded. See, they didn't say that before publicly. You know, Donald Trump lied about that. First, he wasn't going to touch the East Wing. Now you see the whole East Wing is gone, and now they let it leak that, oh, it's also the bunker. You see? Hitler rebuilt the Reich chancellery to glorify himself. Trump is doing the same with the White House in Berlin. 90 square foot ballroom, right? But really, see, he's talking about $300 million. I guarantee you, this is going to go up much more. This is going to be much more money, because you got to remember, Trump can just accept money. What to do with it, they don't know how to legally do something with it, but they can accept all the money they want. And if they know this man has no intention on leaving the White House, if they know that, they might want to give his ass some money. You know, it's like threatening and hijacking people. It's forcing them in some kind of way. Look, Hitler rebuilt the Reich chancellery to glorify himself. Trump is doing the same, right? Hold on. Didn't I do that one? Oh, here we go. Look. There's a bunker under the East Wing of the White House. By sheer coincidence, Adolf Hitler added onto the Reich. Also by building a ballroom above the Vor bunker in 1936. Don't sleep on these people. Like, if you're an American citizen, come together as states. Like, blue state people, like, you know, come together. Blue state police, start understanding your job now is to protect people in a different kind of way, like against something else. Like, stand together, because remember, you have families too. You're going to need water. You're going to need assurances when you leave the house. Police officers aren't invincible. Police officers need to stand on the side of the people. Like, seriously, they're the ones who pay your salary. State pays police officers' salary. The taxpayer, the working people of each state are the ones who pay the police officers' salaries. Like, very simple. Like, I'm just saying it. I said before, Trump is coming. This guy, you don't know what he's capable of doing. He might even try to go after the Second Amendment, like straight up. So on that note, I'm not trying to scare people. Please don't panic when you hear this. I'm just saying, just pay attention. This guy is not following the rules, and he is not being honest about it. Like, so expect something that is going to be pretty rough for the next year. And it's really sad because Christmas time is a time where it's cold in the U.S. It's a time where, it's supposed to be a special time for a lot of people, but families get together. But, where's the money going to come from? And they have the government in a situation where if you don't change this bill anyway, you're fucked. You have to understand that. Like, people need to understand the Democratic Party is doing the right thing right now. They're doing the right thing by holding out, because that is the only thing they can do. Because if they say yes and go along with the bill as it is now, so many American people are going to be put behind and on the streets. Like, that is what you have to know. That is what you have to know. And stand behind the Democratic Party. Don't just hope and wish on them. Get your ass out there in the street and demand something too of this man, because it is your country. A political party, responsibility is not saving your goddamn country. It's every citizen's responsibility to save their country. Every citizen. And, hopefully the parties this country will last and we could get back to some political business. But on that note, I'm out, y'all. I'll be back. I appreciate y'all again for listening. Click the like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And I'm going to catch y'all very, very soon. Peace. One. All right, Chase, I see you. Chase.
They want war. Crying babies looking for food. Starvation, the recipe. People subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every clue. Don't let it go. It's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep, leaving 7 rows to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and I feel we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a low lotus coming out of the mud with colors. I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers, cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather. I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double. But nature gets the shit in a way to settle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TVs whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't tear, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't stare. And like an ad, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison.
They want war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they want to keep you low, so they manifest the war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they want to keep you low, so they manifest the war.